Happy birthday to you. Today it was Magnus Carlsen's birthday. He's 31, but he could not celebrate as he wished because the game was a draw. He was playing with white pieces, and this is game number 4 we are going to analyze. Welcome to the Internet Chess Club. Here is the game. Well, what to say? It was a draw quite pretty fast. I mean, in a few more than 30 moves. And I'm not going to say it was a boring game, but you have to judge by yourself. It was a theoretical battle on the king's pawn. Let's remind that in the previous game, Magnus played d4. It was a very, very interesting game in the Catalan. But today we had e4. And I was pretty sure that Nepo would answer with e5. This is the most solid way, and nowadays this is the pet move of the elite players. Of course, in his repertoire, Nepo has c5, the Sicilian, which is doing quite badly in the last years. e6, the French, which AlphaZero already said this is a very bad opening. And well, I mean, the third main move is e5. Well, after knight f3, then it came like a slight surprise, the move knight f6. I say a slight surprise because in recent years, of course, there is much more people playing knight c6. There are many solid options for black in the Ruy Lopez. But knight f6 comes to the Russian defense, so Nepo is Russian, and shouldn't be such a surprise for Magnus that his opponent plays knight f6. One little thing from my own experience. I remember when preparing the match with Vladimir Kramnik against Garry Kasparov in London 2000, we were thinking to play the Petrov, the Russian defense. It was main weapon of Vladimir, but we thought there were several reasons just that it was a bad idea. One of them was that, and the most important, that Garry would be prepared. I mean, it was, well, I mean, like going into Garry's preparation, this was incredibly dangerous. But secondly, it also goes to some, white can choose to go for some dynamical positions with a lot of tactics. And you need also to have very good memory to remember all variations. It's a very concrete line. It's not so strategical. It's more about what do you play. I remember playing with Karpov. I was making some strategical considerations on the post-mortem, and he was all the time asking me, okay, yeah, but make a move. And this is a problem in the Petrov. I mean, you need to be very precise. There is a lot of theory. It's a very sharp battle from the very beginning. And it's very difficult nowadays to get an advantage for white. Let's see how the game went. Magnus was well prepared. He went knight takes e5. The main alternatives are d4 or knight c3, but knight e5 has always been considered like the main line. Then black, it's well known, this trap. Be careful not to copy white's moves, because after knight e4, white is winning. Well, not winning, but white is better after queen e2. The point is that if the knight goes, then we have this winning check. It's a discovered lethal check. And if black protects the knight, then as far as I remember, we have the move d3, which is very strong. Then, okay, the best for black is to play like this, queen e7 and d6. But finally, white is going to be kind of pawn up. And according to modern theory, white is better. Okay, this is just like a bonus, because of course in the game we got the main move d6. Now white has an option. The main line is knight f3, which happened in the game, but knight c4 has been played sometimes, but of course it's not so good. I mean, it's in the way of the bishop. Also the knight will lose some tempi later after black takes and plays d5. So the only option, and it's quite funny one, it's knight f7, and this move is more serious than it looks. It was played, I remember, by Topalov, and it gives white 2 pawns, 2 central pawns, and some initiative against the black king. But really, nowadays with computer analysis, it's you can prove by force that black is fine. So This kind of chess is not possible anymore in the 21st century at this level. So we got the move knight f3, and after a few moves, well, here on move 5, I must say that one of the main lines is knight c3, and well, there was a big controversial in this line for many years. Now it looks like finally black knows how to equalize, but for some years this was a little problem. White was playing with bishop f4 or bishop e3 and then queen d2, long castle, in a very aggressive way later, trying to push the pawns on the king side. And well, for some reason Magnus went for d4, which is the very main line. And here after move 6 we have black has some alternatives. The most direct approach is bishop d6, which happened in today's game. I remember Vladimir, he was expert also in bishop e7 and knight c6. The both are interesting alternatives. But of course bishop d6 is the more natural move. Also, it was considered for some years the more risky, but modern theory proves that black is fine in most of the lines. I remember at the beginning of the broadcast, Vichy Anand, who is commenting for the FIDE website, he was saying that according to his knowledge, this line nowadays it's giving black full equality. So it was very interesting to see what Magnus would have in this line, just to surprise his opponent. Okay, after rook e1, black plays bishop f5. This is everything well known. And here white has a choice. It's possible to play something like queen c2, knight a6, a3, bishop g6. This considers to be okay for black. And the other move, which was played by Magnus, queen b3. The queen moves from d1 to b3, and the idea is pretty clear: to make pressure on two sensitive points on black's camp. Here black has two moves. One is the most popular move is knight a6. It's a bit more risky. The knight can be sometimes badly placed on the corner. At the same time, black is going to b4 sometimes, and it's move. Okay, it has to be said that queen b7 is a very bad move because knight b4, and the queen is kind of trapped. And also white has problems with knight c2 and knight takes d3. It's really almost a lost position. So after queen a6, knight a6, white has to be a bit more careful. There is a lot of theory, but the more solid line is queen d7, as Vichy Anand pointed in his comments to this game. After queen d7, white has not so many moves. The main line, and in fact the only move in databases, is knight c3. But now I'm going to tell you something. Don't tell it to the players. But I was thinking during the game, why not to play a novelty here, queen c2? It looks completely stupid because the queen was on d8 and now we give a tempi. But what is the idea? The point is that after knight a6, I cannot imagine a better move. Knight a6, we play a3. And now after bishop g6, this is the main theory with the queen on d8, but now we have some other ideas. First of all, knight h4, which was not possible with the queen on d8, and now we want to get a pair of bishops. But there are also some other ideas with connected with the jump to e5 where we attack the queen. So I don't know, but if Magnus or Nepo are watching this video, pay attention to this move. It can be important. Okay. Let's continue with the game. After knight c3, we go to a very well-known line, which is considered to be completely equal. Knight takes, white takes on f5. It's clear that if white allows this kind of isolated pawn, black is going to be more than equal. I mean, probably slightly better in this position. So white, after knight c3, plays bishop f5. Black has to take, and then we take with the pawn on c3. And this position, well, has been played many times, a lot of draws. One alternative would be queen b7 here, but it is very well analyzed. It's very sharp, but if black plays well, it looks like white gets nothing. I mean, after knight e4, white can take the rook and then queen d7. This is a theory, I mean, it's nothing new. Here, after take, black is already threatening to play knight c6. If white takes, this is a losing mistake because bishop h2 and queen takes d5, very typical discovered attack. And the best move for white is rook e4, trying to get away with the queen, but after knight c6, white has to sacrifice. And the position, okay, white is ahead of material, 2 rooks and a pawn for the queen. But white is at the same time behind in development. And black can use it, for example, with moves like knight b4. And okay, theory considers the position to be more or less equal. In the game, we got the more solid move b takes c3. Black is kind of forced to play b6. And I have to say that so far, both players were playing incredibly fast. Nepo was thinking maybe a little bit, but he was very confident in his preparation. And they were blitzing the moves till move 18. Well, after c takes d5, which is the main move here, black has to take with the pawn, because if he plays queen d5, white gets immediately some advantage with this pawn on the center, and that's why black takes with pawn on d5, and now c3 becomes immediately weak. It will be a clear target for the black rooks. In the game, it followed the move queen b5, which is the natural continuation here, just trying to hinder black's development. The knight has problems to develop because, and this is very important, if black plays knight d7, white would be winning here. And this is a tactical exercise I offer you to solve while I drink some water. White to play and win. Yes, did you find the move? Yeah, queen c6. It's very interesting. The bishop doesn't have a place to go. a3 is covered, and if bishop b8, then queen a8. So it's a very funny move, queen c6, very tricky. This is very good for blitz. This trap, of course, not for a grandmaster level. In the game, it followed queen d7, still some games in the database, and white plays here a4. This is the main point of white's strategy with queen b5. The idea is that after knight c6 is probably going to be slightly better for white, this position, because this is pretty weak, and white can start to make some pressure with g3, stopping bishop h2, and then suddenly black has to care very much about this pawn on d5. If he moves the bishop to e7, then we have the tactical move rook e7, and this is winning material for white. And if we play the move bishop c7, then white has some bishop a3, or later some c4 and d5. There are some ideas, very nasty. White gets a very fast initiative. So that's why after a4, black takes on b5. We have the move a b5. And the best move for black here is pretty obvious. Yeah, for a grandmaster. Can you find it? Yes? Can you try? This is a much more strategical idea. It's not, there are no tactics here. And the move is a5. Yes, black intends to get rid of his weak pawn on the a file, because if you see, I mean, if both sides attack the weakness, white can simply protect it easily and double on the a file, and for black it will be difficult to organize the defense in an efficient manner. That's why black gets rid immediately of the weakness a5, and here Magnus had prepared his novelty. This was his preparation, and on move 18, probably he was happy to play his novelty. It was a bit surprising move, I must say, because here black got a passed, protected and passed pawn, and okay, anybody would think that the best move is to take en passant, b takes a6. This is logical. This was played in at least 3 games in the database, and of course they were drawish, because the position is pretty equal after knight takes a6, and okay, the knight goes to c7, and it's a kind of draw. Well, after a5, Magnus came with a novelty, knight h4, a new move. This was his preparation, and at the beginning I was thinking that it could be dangerous for Nepo, Because if Magnus goes for this, it means they were spending a lot of hours working on this position, and Nepo is going to have a bad time. But the truth is that, well, it was pretty easy for the Russian today. He was thinking here for 5 minutes. Still, the most obvious idea is knight f5. We should do something to prevent it, and the most natural move is g6. We are not worried about bishop h6 because the rook goes to c8, and it's not such a big deal to have the bishop here. So after g6, which Nepo played, after 5 minutes, as I said, Magnus answered immediately with g4. This was showing everybody that this was part of his preparation. And what is the idea, you may ask? Well, to get this guy. This is the idea. And you may say, okay, come on, you're joking. g4, knight h4, to get d5? Yes, this is the point. The knight wants to jump to g2, and from g2 it can later go to f4 or e3 and take the poor pawn on d5. At the same time, the pawn on g4 can play a role playing g5 if black tries to defend the pawn with knight f6. It's a sophisticated idea. I don't quite like it. Black is kind of forced to play knight d7 because the knight has no moves. So knight d7 is kind of only idea. White played knight g2. And here Nepo played quite fast. I'm not sure this was his preparation or he simply made a logical move, because in fact it's quite simple, the black's position. I mean, of course he could play knight f6, but he preferred, and I think he was right, to play rook fc8. It's a very safe move. It cannot be bad. We get the rook active, we make some pressure on c3. Then Magnus continued to play very fast. He went bishop f4, still in his preparation. And for the first time in the game, Nepo was thinking for a while. He spent, I think it was 11 minutes before making a decision to trade on f4. The alternative, bishop f8, it was possible, but the white can play rook e1, and later the knight can come to e3, and black may suffer here. So I think it's the right decision to take on f4, knight f4, and rook c3. Well, I mean, this was not so difficult, because these are the most obvious moves for black, so I'm not really sure what to think about Magnus' preparation today, because black was playing the most natural moves and getting very easy equality. In the game, black could make a choice between those two moves. Both seems to be fine, but he went with rook d3, which is the most natural, trying to control the pawn on d4, even to take it, of course. White went rook e7. This was his idea. Now the black knight has to go back, and white gets a very nice square for his knight, knight f6 check. It's obvious that the king must go to g7, because if it goes to h8, then rook f7, and very soon we are going to have a checkmate with two rooks, the Arab mate. So after king g7, Magnus played knight e8 check, king g8, and this is some psychological point I would like to explain here, because when you can force a repetition of moves, it gives you some psychological advantage. You know, it's like, oh look, I am better. But in this case, it's really only psychological, the advantage, because black is perfectly fine. He has a pass pawn protected, his rook is very active, and his pieces protecting very well his king, so there is nothing to fear. White tried d5. Of course, the pawn cannot be taken because knight f6 check, double attack. And after d5, Nepo was thinking a little bit, and he went a4. I must say that from move 25, knight f6 check, Magnus was already thinking quite a lot. I mean, in move 25, he spent more than 21 minutes. Nepo was also thinking 7 minutes for a4, but in general, the Russian was playing faster, very fast. And in the end, it was Magnus who got short of time. He was thinking a lot his next moves. In fact, after a4, he went knight f6 check, king g7, and he played g5. And Nepo played very natural, a3. Now white was thinking for more than half an hour, 34 minutes. It's a lot. And this was the time Magnus needed to convince himself that there is nothing to play for white here. White is not better. So we are curious to know what was Magnus' preparation in this line, because it looks like black equalized with pretty simple moves. In fact, in this position, Magnus went for 98 check, and he repeated moves, offering a draw on move 33. Was there a chance to play on? Let's have a look at this position. There were a couple of ideas. One move which was suggested was d6, to try to bring the pawn. But at the same time, black knight gets freedom, the g5 pawn can be weak, and we can see that there are 3 pieces controlling the promotion square, so this pawn will not become a queen soon. Another idea, very similar but a bit more refined, was to play first h4. We will see. There were some tricks. What would you play with black against h4? Well, this was a difficult question. But of course, Magnus was considering this possibility. What is the idea? Well, there are some ideas. One of them is that now g5 is better protected in some lines. And for example, if black plays h5, then we can play d6, and we have, after 96, we have very solid the pawn on g5. The point is that after h4, if black plays a2, it looks like a slight mistake, because white plays rook e2, and a2 is weak. If black plays rook a3, he becomes pretty passive, and white can maybe start to play d6. There are some ideas here. So after h4, a2 looks not the best. What to do? There is another idea which comes to a very funny line. Look, rook a4, trying to grab this pawn, and white can continue with d6. Now the idea is stronger because the rook is not controlling anymore the promotion square, and after rook h4, white is going to be winning here. It's not easy to find the winning idea, of course. You can stop the video, but the move is rook e1. And the point is that now black is in big trouble, because after a2, can you see it? White to play and win. Yes, this is a beautiful move. There are some interesting mating networks in this position. Black has to be careful. And after h4, black could of course play h6. But okay, then he has to think about check. And now white can take. Probably it's still equal. But this should be carefully checked, because white is now a pawn up, and there are suddenly some chances to some threats like knight f6 and rook f7. So after h4, probably still the best was to play h5, stopping white initiative there, and after d6, knight e6, d7, rook d8, and it looks like there is nothing for white. I mean, this rook is pinned. I mean, it's tied, sorry, to this pawn. It has to control the advance of the a pawn. This is very solid blockade of the d7 pawn, and if white pretends to go further with something like rook e8, there are immediately some drawish ideas like rook d7, and well, I don't know what to do here, but knight d7, rook e8, and who is better than white here. So probably h4 was also nothing special, and that's why Magnus decided to go for a draw, repeating moves with so beautiful knight on f6, but black is solid. What to say? It was a good game. From the correctness point of view, it was not very funny, it was not very exciting, but the match, it is exciting, and after 4 games we have a very equal fight. Nepo is doing pretty well. It's true that Magnus is getting the initiative on the openings, but well, today, yes, he made the novelty in 18 knight h4, but I remember when working for Kramnik, he told me, he was telling all the time, yes, you have to find a new move, but it has to be strong. It's easy to find new moves, completely harmless. So we will see what the players bring for the game number 5, and we will be here on the ICC to tell you everything move by move. Thank you so much.